What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Ben on Sports. As you can tell, this is the weekly NASCAR episode for week 6 at Homestead Motor Speedway, just south of Miami. Hopefully, I'm glad to see, first of all, I'm glad to see that the race is unaffected by the current wildfires going on. It's definitely in the vicinity of the track. I hope that the fires get contained, everybody stays safe, and that NASCAR, in association with HMS, keeps an eye on the situation to make sure the drivers, the fans, and everybody there stay safe. Because there's a couple times it seems like it was getting pretty close to the track this week. So I want to say that first. But yeah, sorry this episode's coming out a little bit late. It's been a busy week. It's still getting out a day and a half before the start time of the race. Hope you guys have time to watch it still. Anyways, those are my two big announcements. I guess I have a third one. I hope you guys are looking forward to an MLB episode because the MLB season is starting a week from Thursday. I know there was technically 2 games, but it is starting soon as well. So there will be an MLB episode coming out. And I may have a special surprise episode for you guys because I have a rant that's built up about a certain sport in the spotlight right now. And if you guys want to see the rant, if you guys want to see the content that the rant produces, because we could go off the wheels pretty quick, drop a like and comment below. So sorry for the long intro. Let's get into it with this week's storylines going in the Homestead. And I want to start off by first congratulating Josh Berry, a guy who has worked hard for everything he's gotten. A little bit older start than most people get to the Cup Series last year, and it was with a team, a once proud team that decided to close the doors in Stewart Haas Racing. Had a couple of good runs last year for a team that was struggling, and certainly seems to have found speed this year. He's had speed in most of the races, and then he comes out and he freaking wins last week. It couldn't have happened to a better guy. Josh Berry, one of the nicest people in NASCAR, and still the most famous person from his high school. I just love that running joke that NASCAR has. Congratulations to Josh Berry. It certainly seems like he could be a threat this season. He's locked into the playoffs. He's shown speed on a variety of tracks. He's obviously a legendary short track racer. I definitely would look out for him in Bristol in what's kind of his hometown race. Maybe you could argue it's Nashville. All around, congratulations. And the 4th Penske car certainly seems like it has a lot more speed than it has the last couple years. Number 2, why is Miami important? Miami is a very important race, although it's only one time a season, and NASCAR, the first 3 Gen 3 races, it was in the playoffs. This is the first year it's not in the playoffs, and it's still only one race. It historically has only been one race, and it's unique in some ways, but it's similar to a lot of other mile-and-a-half tracks. It's similar to even some other intermediate tracks, and I would say it. There's not a great way to say this, but out of all of the tracks in NASCAR that have similar tracks, I think Miami has the most similar tracks. So it's going to continue to give us an idea of what teams are best on this speedway, on this type of racetrack, and what teams are going to continue to have success moving forward. And secondly, Miami's an interesting track because it has multiple grooves that you can drive. Everybody doesn't have to drive in the same groove. You can make speed in a lot of different lines at Homestead, and that hasn't always been the case, and it hasn't always been the case with Next Gen. So I'm looking forward. I want to see somebody ripping the low line and somebody ripping the really famous high line where you're inches from the wall at Miami. I'm definitely intrigued, to see who continues or starts to have speed on this type of track, and B, to see driver preference between high line, low line, mid line, all of their options, and see who can make their car work in the most lines, because that helps going through traffic. Who gets their first win this week? Well, as you're going to find out a little bit later, there's only been 3 next-gen races, and 2 of the 3 have been won by Toyota. So I want to lean Toyota, but Chevy and Ford both have some guys who have speed at this track and have had speed. This is kind of a toss-up. I can't really tell you who gets the first one this week. I want to say Kyle Larson, despite some struggles he has had speed very frequently. William Byron has had success here. A guy like Denny Hamlin or Tyler Reddick, both of those guys are fast. Ryan Blaney likes Miami and could be fast. A lot of guys, a lot of drivers who are doing final points but still haven't found that win early in the season. And while you're not panicking, it's always nice to get an early win, lock yourself into the playoffs as early as possible to avoid the pressure cooker scenario of being on the bubble with 4 races left to the playoffs. So who do I think it could be? I like Blaney. I like Denny Hamlin. I like Tyler Reddick, and I like Kyle Larson if we're talking about a new winner. I also like Christopher Bell and William Byron, 2 guys that have already won races this season. And this, I kind of just talked about this, but which manufacturer gets the win this week? Officially, all 3 manufacturers have won a race after last week. Toyota still has the 3-1 lead. I don't feel like it's very common where Chevy goes 4 consecutive weeks without a win. So I want to say I'm looking at Chevy. If I had to put odds on it, I'm thinking like 40% Chevy, 35% Toyota, 25% Ford. I don't think any team has a greater than 50%, or any manufacturer does. I do think this will tell us some of those important questions I asked at the start of the episode going forward for the rest of the season. Any more first-time winners? I saw an interesting stat in preparing for this that there are certain tracks where people have not won their first Cup Series race and different streaks and stuff like that. And can you believe that Miami has the second longest streak of not having a first-time Cup winner? They've never had one, I think, or maybe at the very beginning. So apparently, Cup Series rookies and first-time Cup Series winners don't like Miami, or maybe don't do as well. I'm definitely interested to see if a first-time Cup winner can get into victory lane. I don't think there's a lot of great options, but out of everybody who has never won a Cup race, the first guy that comes to my mind is Carson Hocevar. Had a great run last fall in this very race. Spire seems to be getting speed more and more consistently, which not that long ago seemed like a crazy proposition. Maybe Hocevar's there. Who are the next top drivers to get their first win? And again, it relates back to one of the other questions we just asked about who gets their first win this week. But some other top drivers I'm keeping an eye on. Kyle Busch. I don't know if he has great chances to win this week, but he's somebody who's won here before. Brad Keselowski's a top driver. Can Ford find something, right? Maybe some of these drivers that recently haven't had a lot of speed, do they show some speed? Do they use their championship experience, their veteran experience, to maybe find victory lane on a track that they used to be successful on? All right, let's move into history. You can see there's not as much history as there was last week for Vegas because there's only been 3 next-gen races at Miami due to it only having one a year. All 3 have been in October, so it's definitely a little bit different of a weather circumstance. Kyle Larson winning the October 2022 race, Christopher Bell winning the October 23 race, and Tyler Reddick winning the October 24 race. So 3 of the best drivers in NASCAR. What does that tell you? Is car or driver more important at Miami? It might end up being the driver by the looks of things, especially because there's so many lines and so many ways to make your car fast at this racetrack. Now, I don't have top 5s and top 10s because I feel like that's a silly exercise when there's only been 3 races, but I do have best average finish, and I will get to why I have a little asterisk there. But best average finish, tied in first place, Christopher Bell. Makes sense. He was won a race here. He's been dominant here. But would you believe it if I told you that good old AJ Allmendinger with Colleague Racing in the next gen has the same average finish as Christopher Bell, which is tied for the best in NASCAR? I wouldn't have. Maybe AJ Allmendinger is a dark horse, deep sleeper that maybe has some speed because he's done it 3 times already at this very track. Ryan Blaney, no surprise there. I feel like I'm always saying his name when I'm getting the best average finish, just like William Byron right behind him. They have a 7 and a 7.3 average finish. And then Chase Elliott in 5th place with an 11.3 average finish at Miami, or Miami Homestead, whatever you want to call it. I always think Miami first, but I know it's Homestead. Sorry for my South Floridians that get offended at calling them the same place. Here's why I have an asterisk here. There's actually 3 drivers that have average finishes in the top 5. 2 of them, and Josh Berry and Carson Hocevar, have only ran 1 race there. So is it fair for me to put them, if they've only won 1 race at this place, in there with guys who have run 3? I don't think so. So I left them out because while they both had very good runs, Barry at 11th and Hocevar a top 10 run bordering on top 5, I don't think so. And then this other one, the third one that is left out, is Kevin Harvick, who did run 2 races here, but he's in the box now, right? He's retired. He's in the booth. So didn't think it made sense to list a retired driver. So that's how I got to these top 5. If you're looking at the stats and like, oh, why did you leave this guy out? That's why. But Josh Berry, again, maybe dark horse. He's had speed at every track, and he had his only time here in the Cup Series. He finished 11th. So maybe Josh Berry can join the dark horse list with AJ Allmendinger and Carson Hocevar. Favorites to win. I've talked about this a tad little bit. Team rankings. Hendrick Motorsports. I trust them to win here. They've won one of the races with Larson. William Byron has been competitive at Miami. I actually believe, and William Byron actually won the last race at Miami before Next Gen was implemented. So Byron has won here before, just not in the Next Gen car. Hendrick Motorsports is usually the team I like to do the best at any given racetrack. They are the best team in the sport for a reason. This week, Joe Gibbs has jumped up to second. Denny Hamlin has been successful here. He likes this track. Christopher Bell has won here in the Next Gen car. He's fast here. Kyle Busch, when he was in 18, granted that's now been a while ago, has also won some races at Miami. So Joe Gibbs, no stranger to building fast race cars, no stranger to being fast at Miami. 23XI Racing has won here with Tyler Reddick, and Bubba Wallace was actually just right outside the top 5 average finish. Bubba Wallace is one of the best active drivers on this track from an average finishing perspective. He's a guy I expect to see around the top 10 most of the day. Team Penske, Blaney's been is really fast here. I'm a little bit worried about Logano and Cindric. Cindric has no top 10s at this track in his career. He's been off the pace. Logano has been sometimes good, sometimes bad, much like I feel like recent history has been for him. Blaney, I trust, and Team Penske's never going to be, is usually not completely slow and off the pace at a track. They're the 3rd best team in NASCAR. Well, maybe some 23XI fans take offense to that, but they're one of the top teams in NASCAR for a reason. And then in a distant 5th, I was between Trackhouse, who has had some more consistent speed, and Ross is decent here. But at the end of the day, I like Chris Buescher. I think he can find speed at these tracks. Brad Keselowski is an experienced vet, and I like that better than the Ross our Trackhouse Racing. I know both of those teams technically have 3 drivers. In fact, I just disrespected. I believe at RFK Racing, the guy with the best average finish here is actually Ryan Preece. So yeah, RFK has 3 guys that I expect to see in the top 15, fighting for top 10s, maybe even the lead. Trackhouse only has 1, maybe 2 with Daniel Suarez, which is why I've moved Trackhouse out of the top 5, because I feel like most of these weeks, my top 5 is the same teams in a different order. Wanted to explain why I bumped RFK above Trackhouse for this week. Driver rankings. Kyle Larson. Now, you might be saying he hasn't won a race all year. He actually has some pretty bad finishes at Miami. He's run into the water barrels at the end of pit road before. He's self-spun before. He's still freaking Kyle Larson. He's still fast. He's still won at this track. I'm not going to be dumb and count him out. He's hungry for a win. He's going to get one sooner rather than later, I think. We just saw a stretch where Christopher Bell dominates. Kyle Larson is liable to have a stretch where he dominates at any point in the season. I'm definitely watching Kyle Larson here. Christopher Bell, another previous winner who's been probably the most consistently fast car. I think that's a fair argument you can make in NASCAR this year. He's been up front all year. Won 3 of the 5 races this year. Look out for Christopher Bell. Ryan Blaney, I've already talked about a lot today. I expect to see Ryan Blaney do well, compete for a top 10, be on the outside of the top 5, maybe finish 4th or 5th, get some stage points, have a good points day. Tyler Reddick has won here. He's been fast all year. He's definitely a guy I expect to see competing for a top 5 and getting some points. William Byron, a previous winner here, although not in Next Gen. And those are my top 5 guys. I think they're a little bit above the next group of 5 that I have. And Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Bowman, Alex Bowman, Bubba Wallace, and AJ Allmendinger. All 5 of those guys are guys who have been fast here. They've been fast most of this year, if not all of this year. They have good experience here. I just don't think they're as reliable right now as the top 5 and as fast as the first 5 drivers I have. But really, I think your winner's most likely coming from one of these 10 drivers, with Bubba and Allmendinger being your dark horses. And my new driver power rankings, everybody's favorite part of the episode. Christopher Bell, William Byron, still 1-2. And until farther notice, they will be there. Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, still 3 and 4. They're kind of like that second tier by themselves right now, bringing consistent speed, getting good finishes, in a good points position. Denny Hamlin is right there. Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott, those 3 guys, showing speed too. Not quite as consistently, in my opinion. And I still think all 3 of those guys should have more points than what they do. All 3 of those guys bring speed and then finish worse, whether it's a wreck, somebody else's fault, whatever. All 3 of those guys have bought speed. All 3 of them deserve to be higher in the points than they are. But they're still really good drivers with great teams. Ross Chastain, I think we're starting to see Trackhouse rebound. I feel like they went through a little bit of a lull in some ways, and they're starting the season a lot stronger than I think they did the 2024 season. And I think Chastain has been a large reason why. I expect to continue to see him to do well. Alex Bowman, just doing his thing, quietly chugging along, quietly putting together good finishes, quietly keeping himself in position and points to advance. And if he keeps up this consistency, I think a win could be coming for him. Josh Berry vaults into the top 10. He was 15th last week, jolts into the top 10 after back-to-back good speed weeks and his first career Cup Series win. Again, great week for him. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh Berry may have arrived to the NASCAR Cup Series. Certainly has looked the part so far this year with his new team, Wood Brothers Racing. Chris Buescher, another guy that's kind of quietly going about his business. Maybe hasn't been at the front a lot, but he's not running in the back. He's finding a way to get points and keep himself in position to capitalize. Here's an old sports adage for you. Chris Buescher is a guy who's putting himself in position to be in position. Joey Logano, he's kind of slowly falling back. He's a guy who's had a lot of speed and just can't get good finishes. It's wrecks, it's mistakes, it's this, it's that. I think eventually a 3-time champion as Joey Logano needs to take advantage of this speed and get a solid finish and win a race. I don't know if that's this week, but I wouldn't put it past him with the strength he has at some of the tracks coming up on the schedule. Bubba, another guy putting himself in position to be in position. I think this is one of the best starts he's had to a season to start his career. John Hunter Nemechek, quietly, if the playoffs were to start today, John Hunter Nemechek would be in them. Who would have thought that coming into the year? He may not be top 10 every week, but he's still finding ways to get good finishes and just not beat himself. Mike McDowell, one of the best starts to a season he's ever had, maybe the best. I know he's not winning races, and I know it may not seem obvious, but he's been having good speed of Aspire, and he's been putting together good finish after good finish. Ricky Stenhouse, another guy with a great start. Some of these guys who normally are in the back or normally in the 20s are starting to figure it out, and I think that's a lot of what NASCAR wants to see happen. And everybody's like, oh, well, it's just Daytona, it's just Atlanta, or oh, it's just this course. And sometimes that's the case, but we've had 3 or 4 different kinds of courses, and these guys are still up there in points. Maybe they're here to stick around. Ryan Preece is a guy I think who might continue to rise up these power rankings. He seems like he's getting more consistent on more tracks, and RFK looks like it's getting a little bit more speed every race. Watch out for Ryan Preece. I think Daniel Suarez is starting to rebound. He's 19th in points, not too far back. I expect to see him, especially if Trackhouse keeps getting speed and he sees his teammate Ross Chastain keeping speed. I expect to see Daniel Suarez be okay. And Chase Briscoe has slowly dropped down. One more bad week and he's out of the top 20. There's not anybody that really rose to the occasion to me to pass him. Really rough week last week after that wheel fell off. He did come back from, 6 laps down to get a top 20 finish, but missed out on being able to make a run up front and getting stage points. Bad luck team continues this year. Really starting to get worried. First year at a new team. that maybe things aren't as rosy as they seemed in the offseason. Can Chase Briscoe in the 19 build some momentum this week? Thank you guys for coming out and listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you for spending time out of your days, your weeks, and your lives to listen. Let me know your hot takes for this week in the comments. Like the video, comment, subscribe. Those are the 3 things that help me out the most. I want to hear from the community about NASCAR, how you're liking NASCAR, what other kind of content you're liking. That way I can make sure to keep it up. And also, I like to hear from the community about their takes. Sometimes I may not like them, but that's why we have civil discussions in the comments, right? Anyway, I appreciate you guys once again taking time out to listen. Once again, I want to keep thoughts and prayers out there for those affected by the wildfire that's going on right next to Homestead Motor Speedway. Obviously, selfishly, as a fan, I'm hoping it doesn't affect the race, but there are more important things in this world. That's going to be the focus of the weekend. Keep those folks in your thoughts and prayers. Peace out, everybody.